Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Logan's Voice. I'm Doug Ballinger, Logan's dad, and today we're going to talk about something that's making headlines all across the country. Overdose deaths are going down. And that should be good news, right? It is good news. Every single life saved is a miracle. Every parent who doesn't have to bury their child, a sister who gets to hear her brother's laugh, a community that gets one more chance to help someone heal. But here's the part that's not in the headline. Overdoses themselves aren't declining. We're not seeing fewer people using dangerous drugs. We're not seeing a major drop in non-fatal overdoses. What we're seeing is that more people are surviving because someone was close enough and prepared enough to give them naloxone, a medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. And don't get me wrong, naloxone is incredible. It's saving lives every day. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking we're winning the war just because fewer people are dying. The only reason those people are alive is because they got lucky enough to be saved. But what happens after that? What happens after someone's heart starts beating again? Because I'll tell you this right now, the potential for recovery is zero once someone dies. That's why this episode matters. Because we've got to go deeper. We've got to ask, why are people still overdosing in the first place? What are we doing to treat the underlying substance use disorder that led them to that overdose? And what can you do? Yes, you, to make sure you're ready to help when it happens near you. Because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. This crisis isn't over there anymore. It's here. It's personal. It's real, and it's growing in the shadows of silence and stigma. So today, we're going to talk about naloxone, we're going to talk about survival, and we're going to talk about what it really takes to turn an overdose into a chance for recovery. Let's dive in. Let's start with something simple, but life-saving, naloxone. You might know it by the brand name Narcan. It's a medication designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdoses. When someone's breathing slows down or stops because of fentanyl, heroin, or a prescription opioid, naloxone can bring them back, sometimes in seconds. It's that powerful. And the best part? You don't need to be a doctor or a paramedic to use it. It comes as a nasal spray. No complicated instructions. Just a quick spray up the nose, and you could literally save a life in the time it takes to tie your shoes. But here's what people get wrong. They think naloxone is just for those people. The folks on the street, the people they pass in the alley, the addicts in the newspaper headlines. Let me say this as clearly as I can. Naloxone is for all of us. Because addiction doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're a straight A student, a churchgoer, a lawyer, a nurse, a single parent, or a teenager just trying something for the first time. Fentanyl has made its way into everything, from counterfeit pills to party drugs to cocaine, and it takes just one mistake to end a life. If you think this crisis won't affect you or someone you love, you're playing with fire. I used to think the same thing until my son Logan died from fentanyl poisoning. So let me ask you, if you were at a gas station and someone dropped to the floor in front of you, would you be able to help? If it was your neighbor, your niece, your child's best friend, would you have naloxone in your car, your purse, your backpack? Would you know what to do? We carry Band-Aids, seatbelts, EpiPens, not because we expect disaster, but because we want to be ready just in case. Naloxone belongs right next to those. Every second counts. And in the time it takes for paramedics to arrive, you could be the difference between life and death. But here's the thing. Saving a life isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. And that brings us to the next part of this conversation. What happens after the overdose? Let's talk about what this looks like outside of the headlines, on the ground, in our neighborhoods, and yes, even in our nightclubs. I've personally walked into bars right here in our local entertainment district and handed out naloxone. I didn't show up with judgment, I showed up with compassion and a simple message. This could save someone's life. And you know what? It was well received. Bartenders, bouncers, patrons, they wanted to be prepared. They understood because too many of them had already seen it happen. Someone overdosing in the bathroom, someone collapsing outside. No one ever thinks it will happen where they work, where they party, where they relax, but it does. That's why these efforts to arm the general public with naloxone are so important. We're not just talking to people in treatment centers or shelters. We're talking to real people in real places where overdoses are actually happening. This is what it means to meet people where they are, not where we wish they were, not where it's comfortable, but where the risk is real and where the opportunity to save a life is right now. This is the kind of harm reduction that makes a difference. Making naloxone free and accessible, putting it in the hands of people most likely to witness an overdose, training them, empowering them, breaking the silence and saying, you matter, your community matters, let's keep each other alive. So if you're listening and you manage a bar, a coffee shop, a gym, a library, or a school, this is your sign. Get some naloxone. Ask your local health department. Reach out to organizations like Hope Movement Coalition. You never know when that little box might become the most powerful tool you've ever held. So let's talk about some facts. Yes, the number of overdose deaths is declining in parts of the country, and that is something worth acknowledging. But let's not confuse fewer deaths with fewer overdoses. Emergency departments are still overwhelmed. First responders are still using naloxone at record levels, and too many of the same people are overdosing again and again, often within days or weeks. The year before Logan died, he received Narcan 2 different occasions within a 3-day period. These are not isolated incidents. This is a crisis in motion. And let me be perfectly clear. This isn't a win. This is a life raft. It's not because we fixed the root of the problem. It's because we've gotten better at pulling people out of the water before they drown. That's important. But it's not the same as building a bridge to shore. Overdose reversals don't mean healing. They mean someone survived this time. That's it. They survived a moment that could have been fatal, and now they need help. Real help to survive the next one. But too often, that help doesn't come. There's no follow-up, no treatment, no plan, no one checking in. Just a return to the same life, the same pain, the same triggers that led them to use in the first place. That's not really a second chance. That's a setup for the next overdose. We can't stop at resuscitation. We have to push for recovery infrastructure, systems that catch people before they fall again. That includes long-term treatment access, housing stability, peer support, mental health services, employment opportunities, and most importantly, compassion without condition. We have to treat the whole person, not just a crisis, because here's what I know from my son Logan's story. If we don't give people the tools to heal, we bury more of them. And they won't be statistics. They'll be sons, daughters, partners, friends. The overdose crisis isn't over. It's just evolving. And if we let these numbers lull us into complacency, we're going to lose more lives than we can count. So don't celebrate too soon. Don't turn away. This is not the finish line. It's the starting block. And the question is, what are we willing to do next? But what happens after the save? Let's sit with this truth for a minute. Saving someone from an overdose is just the beginning. It's a moment of relief. It's breath returning, a heart beating again. But what happens after the ambulance leaves? After the adrenaline fades? After the crisis is over? At least for now. In far too many cases, nothing happens. No one follows up. No one calls to check in. No one offers treatment, a warm bed, or even a bottle of water. The system says, you survived. Good luck. And we wonder why people overdose again. We keep treating the overdose like it's the problem, but the overdose is the symptom. The underlying illness is substance use disorder, a complex brain disease that hijacks decision making, disrupts emotional regulation, and rewires how people cope with pain. If we don't treat the disease, we're just waiting for the next emergency. Let me put it this way. If someone had a heart attack and we shocked them back to life, would we just send them home and hope for the best? Of course not. We'd treat the heart. We'd monitor their health. We'd build a recovery plan. So why is it different when the heart stops because of drugs? It's stigma, it's shame, it's decades of misunderstanding what addiction really is and who it impacts. But recovery is possible. I've seen it. I've walked beside people who've come back from the edge and rebuilt their lives brick by brick. But you can't recover from a disease if no one will treat it. That's why naloxone must be paired with action. It's the beginning of the conversation, not the end. Here's what people need after the save: access to medical detox without weeks of wait lists, medication-assisted recovery like Suboxone or methadone without stigma, trauma-informed therapy and mental health care, safe places to sleep, eat, and reconnect with life, community support, people who don't flinch at the word addiction. Because we don't just need to save lives, we need to help people live again. And that takes more than nasal spray. It takes all of us stepping up and saying, you're worth saving, not just once, not just for a moment, but for good. This should be a wake-up call for everyone. Let me say this loud and clear. If you think this crisis won't touch you, you're wrong. I'm going to say it again. If you think this crisis won't touch you, you're wrong. I don't say it to scare you. I say it to wake you up. Addiction is no longer something happening somewhere else. It's not just a back alley issue. It's not a stranger's tragedy. It's here. It's in your neighborhood, your school, your workplace, your friend group, your family. You might not know it yet, but someone you love is at risk. It could be your son, your daughters, your niece, your nephew. It could be the kid who grew up next door, the coworker who's always seems a little tired, the friend who suddenly stops showing up. And when the moment comes, when they collapse or stop breathing or someone yells for help, you don't want to be empty-handed. You don't want to be one of the people who could have saved a life if you only had naloxone. That's the reality of this epidemic. Fentanyl has made it so that one mistake, one counterfeit pill, one bad night, one bad mix can be fatal. And the only thing standing between someone you love and a funeral might be you. So don't wait to care until it's your crisis. Don't wait until it's your child or your best friend or your partner in that hospital bed, or worse, on that autopsy table. Get educated, get prepared, and get involved. Carrying naloxone doesn't make you a drug user. It makes you a human being who understands that every life matters. And if we're serious about turning this crisis around, then we have to stop pretending it's someone else's problem. Because the moment you realize it's your problem, might be too late. Let this be your wake up call. This is a moment to act, not after the next overdose, not after the next funeral, right now. So, now that you know, what will you do? You've heard the truth. Overdoses are still happening. People are still dying. And the difference between life and death could be you with a box of naloxone in your hand and the courage to use it. It's not enough to be aware. We have to be prepared. Prepared to act. Prepared to speak. Prepared to save. So here's your call to action. If you live in Arkansas, there are resources that can help you right now. You can reach out to Hope Movement Coalition or the Arkansas Opioid Recovery Partnership through their HERO program. They will put naloxone in your hands for free. No questions asked, no judgment, just some life-saving tools and training ready for the moment they're needed. And if you're listening from any of the other 49 states, you're not alone. There are grassroots organizations, harm reduction groups, and community programs across this country handing out naloxone at no charge. All you have to do is ask. Search online. Ask your local health department. Walk into a support group. Naloxone is out there, so get you some. Don't wait for tragedy to knock on your door. Be ready. Be aware. Be the one who shows up when it counts. Because at the end of the day, what we're really talking about here is love in action. We don't need more thoughts and prayers. We need more people carrying naloxone. We need more people choosing compassion over judgment. We need more people refusing to stay silent while this crisis takes another soul. So let's make a promise right now to each other and to those we've lost. We will fight. We will speak. We will carry naloxone. And we will love one another out loud and on purpose. Thank you for listening to Logan's Voice. This isn't just a podcast. This is a movement. Until next time, be kind to yourself, love one another, and please, for the sake of someone's future, get you some naloxone. I am Logan's voice. I am Logan's dad, and I will not be silent.